Tony, you were building AI products before it was cool.
We were building an AI-first platform at a time where there was no OpenAI API. We built our own AI models from scratch.
I remember you told me a crazy story that you closed the pre-seed funding in the last month where you could still pay the rent.
It was literally the last month where I could pay rent. So the timing was good.
A lot of product managers have AI in their title, but when you ask them how you're doing it, they don't really talk about it.
If you want to create an AI-first product today, you can get an MVP ready within days. Because of without even writing a line of code. And that's pretty wild.
What were the biggest challenges building this AI tool?
How do we make sure that we are...
Tony, I'm excited to have you here. You were building AI products before it was cool. For the listeners, can you introduce yourself and briefly explain what is Uizard?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Amir. So I'm Tony, and I've been building, as you said, an AI tool before AI was cool. And so Uizard, which was spelled Uizard, was basically the first product design tool that was powered by AI. And we built this since 2018, launched it to market in 2021, so long before the ChatGPT Gen AI frenzy, and the company was acquired by Miro last year in June 2024. So that's what Uizard is in a nutshell.
And what are you doing now?
I have the pleasure to be head of product for AI at Miro, to basically see and work hard with our team to transform our platform into an AI-first creativity and collaboration platform.
Great. We will get to that a little bit later. But you said you started 2018, but you launched the product 2021, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, it took us a few years to build it.
And why is that? What were the challenges?
Yeah, so first of all, we were building, a dev and design tool. And the bar typically is pretty high for this kind of software. If you even look at Figma, a tool that everybody know and love, it took them, I think, 3.5 years to even get, to launch. Same story as us. And on top of this, we also were building an AI-first platform at a time where there was no OpenAI API you can call. There was no Stability AI API you can call. So we built our own AI models from scratch, and that means that we had to conduct research, we had to build everything from scratch, and that took some time, basically, to just collect data, build the models, build the products surrounding the models, and then be at a level where we're comfortable enough that we can go out.
I remember you told me a crazy story that you closed the pre-seed funding in the last month where you could still pay the rent. Can you tell a little bit more about those days? Let's pause here for a second. The other day, I was looking into our channel analytics and I noticed many of you guys are watching a lot of our episodes but not yet subscribed to our YouTube page or Spotify. I will ask you as a favor. Please support us by subscribing to our YouTube page and Spotify page, and I will promise you I will do everything in my power to make each episode better and better. Thank you.
Yeah, so first of all, Uizard started as a way to productize research. Initially, I never felt I was going to be an entrepreneur or founder. I wanted to build some cool tech, and one of my weekend projects went viral online. And when it went viral online, I realized, people want to use this. So, hey, you know what? Let's try to turn this into a company. And so I quit my job and then I tried to figure out, okay, how do I fund this? Because I knew because of the research element and the AI novelty element, I would need capital to build and launch this. I couldn't just go bootstrap because it will be so bad that people wouldn't want to use it until it's, mature enough. And so to your point, as we discussed previously, between the moment I decided to just quit my job and go full time on this and the moment we close our pre-seed funding, it was literally the last month where I could pay rent. And so the timing was good.
That's interesting. So what are the challenges with AI first product mindset?
Yeah, so I guess things change a lot today because, if you build an AI first platform today and you are tapping into an Anthropic API or an OpenAI API, you can get something really quickly up the ground. You can get feedback from customers and you can basically apply all the feedback that YC has been given for years to your company. Now, when we started, you couldn't just apply the YC, all the YC feedback, which is Paul Graham has always said, if you are not feeling awkward about your first launch, then you launch too late. And in our case, you had to build the AI first model before it's get to the level where you can actually create value. You can't get anybody to use it. And so what it means to build an AI first product in 2018, it's really like painful machine learning research and engineering, collecting data, training models, labeling data, testing with early alpha users to see, okay, is a model good enough or on the edge cases that we might have not thought of in our research. And that entire process is so time consuming, and now you don't even need to do this. You can just, again, plug into an LLM and have something up and running within hours. So very different story, very different process.
Can someone build Uizard, do you think, with the OpenAI's API right now?
The thing that we like to say is that the great thing about those LLM providers is that they are general purpose models. And general purpose models are a great way to start. But if you look at the average human, it's equivalent to the average, general purpose LLM, meaning they can cover a lot of ground, but they are not a specialized AI model for design or software engineering or whatever, you name it. And so, yes, you can actually get to the beta stage in hours or days, but getting to the moment where you can actually create deep value within a specific vertical, in our case, design, you still need to just build some, very specific layer on top to make sure that you really nail it. Otherwise, there is a lot of activity in our space, but no one yet has been able to replicate the same level of technology complexity that we've done by leveraging both LLM and our own models.
And what was the hit count when you sold it to Miro?
We were 55 at the time when we got acquired by Miro.
Can you a little bit share more about how the AI part is working? Because what I see on the whole market, everyone's talking about AI. A lot of product managers have AI in their title. Yeah. But when you kind of ask them how you're doing it, it's just they don't really talk about it. Or what happens is there's a lot of courses about how to do prompt engineering. So right. I see a big gap between what happens when you want to go beyond prompt engineering. What are the next steps? And I'm sure a lot of listeners would like to learn from that.
That's a good question. And actually, before LLM and AI became mainstream, it also took us a long. It was not easy for customers and investors to understand exactly what was the AI element in Uizard. Because at the time, no one really had some intuition about what AI is and what AI can do. And so in our world, what we were calling AI at the time, which is still very much the definition today, is that we were leveraging machine learning models that were built with deep neural networks. And these deep neural networks were trained for different tasks. For example, we're training deep neural networks to take images as input and then be able to understand, what are the concepts or elements that are in that images? What are the buttons and where are the buttons located? What are the colors of these buttons? What are the shapes and property of these buttons? That's an AI model on its own. And the second layer was to generate, we like to say sometimes generating code, but I think code is a misnomer. We're generating computer serialized strings that will enable us to do different things. Generate design artifacts, generate front-end code, and so on. And again, that was deep neural networks trained to do this specific work. Again, very similar to LLM today, except that it's a full-scale model that can do a lot of different things beyond code and design. So that's the AI element. And so to summarize, to using this background and go back to your initial question, which is how were we using AI? It was a combination of own models, as I said, computer vision, which is understanding images, generating code, as well as LLM to just tie all of this together and make sure that whatever we generate corresponds to the input that the user provided, either in the form of a prompt or in the form of a series of images.
That's very interesting. So just to summarize, let's say someone is listening to this, you have built awesome AI products, and now you still head up the product at Miro, the AI part. So where should they start? Let's say they are now badass at prompt engineering, so they want to go to the next steps. Can you a little bit advise on that?
So you mean if someone is a badass software engineer and they want to just go ahead and build AI first product? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, or you're a good senior product manager. You have good understanding of backend APIs, everything, right. Mobile side, right? And you know very well also about how the prompt engineering is working.
Yes.
But prompt engineering is not really AI. It's just you're trying to just to craft a good format that you're waiting for a good output. You're not really building on top of AI. So what are the next steps? How can they get started? What are your advices from like beginner stage and then medium and then more advanced?
Well, I actually disagree a little bit, as in, like, at the end of the day, even though everybody's just telling that they're building AI first product, like, at the end of the day, customers don't care. Like, people, users, companies, customers want software that solves a problem. Whether it's built with AI or built with, Mechanical Turk or built with whatever, ultimately people don't care. Like us, startup nerds and early adopters, we find it interesting, but most people don't care, right? And so if you are product leaders that has this intuition about building products that solve deep customer problems and create value, at the end of the day, today is pretty amazing because you can put something together really quickly without even writing a line of code. And that's pretty wild. Like, the day we live in today would have been science fiction, if you described this to someone 2 years ago. And here we are. You can write some prompt into an LLM and you can get something running really quickly. So if you're really good at prompt engineering, to your point, and you can make an LLM produce the output that we want, you can actually chain this together to make more complex output. And that's something that people started to also do really recently, which is like, okay, this LLM can get me this output, and if I call this other LLM, it get me this other output. And if I change the result in a certain way, I get to my end state, and then I can actually show the result to the user and iterate from that standpoint. So if you want to create an AI first product today, because of LLM, you can get an MVP ready within days. And then it's only once you validated that you have customers willing to pay for this that you can go and go into the weeds and maybe go and train your own models to just tweak the quality of whatever doesn't work with LLM. So the beautiful things today that you don't need to be a computer science major to just get that MVP of the ground. You can do it as a product leader with strong intuition that are able to just tie piece of software together.
For better understanding, can you give an example of like a feature or an app that that they're exactly using multiple different LLMs, like more practical?
Yeah, actually, so I'll give you an example about Uizard without going too much into the details. But in 2023, if I'm not mistaken, time flies. We launched our first kind of like full project generator. For a while, we had the ability to generate unique individual UIs, screens, components, and then we launched something called Auto Designer, which was basically generating a full, multi-screen prototype with interaction built in. So you could actually just click on the button, it will interact, and you will basically be able to just test the full app or website flow. In order to get to this end state, there's multiple models that work together, both, old school proprietary models as well as LLMs. And it's just not, one call to an OpenAI API and then you call it a day. There's multiple things going on. For example, the first step is like, okay, what is the user trying to generate? What are the main themes that are trying to be generated? What are the type of screens that the user might want to fit that prompt that they try to generate? Once you have this, you can actually use this to just say, okay, what are the individual UI components that would fit, let's say, in a login screen or in a checkout flow? And then you do that task. And then what are the individual components that should fit in that login screen or that checkout flow? And once you have this, you can say, okay, now I need the style. I need the design, aesthetic. What are the main colors or the main theme that would fit that prompt? What are the images that I should also insert? What are the icons? And then you can pull it all together and then, you have your end results. But to get to the end result, you might actually do 20, 30, 50 calls to different type of models that are specialized in different tasks.
What were the biggest challenges when you now describe this? So what were the biggest challenges building this AI tool?
Well, initially it was, again, we built everything on AWS. And in the pre-LLM days, there was not a lot of tools that you could use to build and serve models. So we had to build a lot of optimization ourselves to just, okay, how do we make sure that we are not like having some really expensive machine just waiting for user requests, but are a bit smart about this because you can quickly, spend a lot of money on some of this infrastructure. That was the pre-LLM challenges, so to say, serving, training models and make it scale. The post-LLM challenges was more, okay, you have this chain of LLM, we under the hood, we're using our own models, as well as OpenAI, as well as Anthropic, as well as Stability AI, and all of this work together. So the challenge then become latency. You're making calls to different models. How do you make sure that there is error handling? If one of them fail along the way, how do you recover from this? How do you make sure you have some output or fail gracefully, so the user just like hang there and wait forever. And even still, latency is still an issue today, because if you want to do really complex stuff, it might take a few, maybe a minute maximum. And a minute, it's a long time if you are expecting the user to wait there, on screen. So that it becomes really like UX challenges more than just hardcore technical challenges at this point.
And what suggestions do you have for that specific challenge, the latency?
Well, then it becomes like, software engineering 1.0, then this is a moment where you need to have some either computer science, intuition, experience, or you're a great hacker and you can just get into the weeds and figure something out, either by yourself or using LLM. That's the crazy stuff. You can also get pretty far with just LLM as a software peer partner.
It's very interesting. When AI was not cool and you wanted to like grow Uizard, did you have challenges hiring people which were, let's say, they have understanding of machine learning or things that you wanted to build? Because I think you were actually the first person who built a tool about designing using AI. I don't remember anyone else who did it.
Within UX UI design, we were one of the first. Of course, there's been a ton of research back in the 90s about like how to use machine learning, but like from a startup readiness, like product standpoint, I think we were one of the first. Hiring is always a challenge. Like today, it's the same challenge as we had back then, which is like, even though we were one of the first to build this design AI powered platform, finding the right people at the right moment in your company lifecycle is always a challenge. And so for us, because at the time AI was the main complexity, we had to build, again, models from scratch. We actually went on and hired people straight from university, graduate students within computer science that were doing machine learning in different fields. That's how we basically hired our first team.
And was it good? Because you're just hiring someone who didn't really work and coming out of university.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is that when you hire people that are, and even us, the founders, were only like 2 years in the industry, or 2 to 4 years, so we were also pretty fresh, so to say. But there's benefits, right? When you hire young graduates, they haven't yet been biased by the way an organization should work. They haven't yet been biased about the slowness of certain organizational processes. So if I love hiring, fresh students and graduates because they have this appetite, angriness, to just go and get shit done. And without, again, the bias of like, oh, this is how we should do things. No, you just get it done, whatever it takes. So, no, it worked out. Of course, you mishire, but overall, I'm pretty happy with the team we had. And actually, of all our first, 5 initial employees are still with the company today. 7 years later, working with us as Miro. So I'm pretty happy that we managed to just build a strong team and work together for like so many years.
Wow, that's very interesting. And I really like your point on hiring people which they're hungry, they're young, and if you can find a young, hungry person who is really willing to learn, that is great.
Exactly.
But what I sometimes see is like they're hungry, but when they get to the work and then they start to explore different things, after a while they just like kind of slow down, because the hunger was just something that, because they haven't done it. So after they do it for like 6 months, they're like, let me just go back to being a C player. And that, I think for an entrepreneur, that is bad, because you're putting an investment. You're thinking, okay, this is going to be an A player, because you're going to spend some time training that person, right? Yeah. So I don't know, what's your take on that?
Yeah, what you're saying is very interesting. It's kind of like ignorance is bliss, which is like when you don't know, then you and I think that's true also for entrepreneur. Like, if you speak to any company, any entrepreneur that have been doing this for like 5+ years, would you do it again, knowing all the things you know today? There's this great interview from Yenseng Wang where he was asked, like, if you go 30 years back in would you start at NVIDIA again, knowing what you know? And he was like, hell no. And I think this is really interesting, because the power is the superpower of an entrepreneur, and the superpower of, again, one of these graduates first hire, is that they don't know how hard it is going to be. They don't know the challenges that they will have to overcome. And that that's the key power. But of course, some people can be easily discouraged once they hit the first roadblock or the first mountain. But again, as an entrepreneur, your role is to make sure that people are always motivated and realize like, hey, it's tough, but there is a reason why it's hard. No one has done it in the past, or we're trying to just do something different, or show them the value that the product that they're building has for customers and for the world. And if you keep showing people that what is being done it matters or has an impact, you can overcome a lot of these hurdles of trying to do great things.
Yeah, definitely. I was brought in as an advisor for a startup to help them. They had a couple of major product mistakes, and it was a very young team. I think there were like 20, 30 people, but the founders were very young. And then they hired another young person and another young person and another young person, right? And sometimes I think when we're building like great products in terms of like infrastructure, we kind of really need to little bit have some senior advice, like don't use, let's say, this framework or try to build your infrastructure from day one like that. And in that startup, they never had any senior advice. So they were just figuring out along the way. And I think for them, unfortunately, it was a little bit too late. They were like 3 years in. Never is too late, but the infrastructure had so many issues. Solving all of that was like, okay, let's erase the project and build a new one. So I think you got to find a balance between hungry young people and a few, senior people. Or advisors, to just get some sort of like direction sometimes.
Yeah, well, then the way I think is that one of the founders should be that senior technical person. Mm-hmm. I think you're absolutely right to point that out. The only way what I just described work, in my opinion, is if at least one or two of the co-founders are deeply technical and have enough seniority to just know how great, what great look like in engineering. Otherwise, you will do a lot of mistakes. And of course, you also don't want to over-engineer things for scale when you don't even know whether you build the right things. And again, all this kind of like philosophy of product building and engineering need to come from the founder, in my opinion. It can't be from the first employees. It needs to come from the top, as far as I'm concerned.
Can you just tell us more about the other founders? Because I think you guys are 3 in total, right?
We're actually 4 in total. We're quite a big group. So Florian was our non-technical thought partner. He was leading operation, finances, marketing in the early days, and everything else that was not product focused. Then Henrik, who was our CTO, he's been like building websites since he was a kid. He was basically like leading all the product side of the engineering, customer-facing product, and the entire design editor and so on. Yannis, who was leading infrastructure, security, and all the backbone of our infrastructure, also like machine learning model serving and so on. And in the early days, I was leading the machine learning research and engineering aspect, which I did as lead machine learning engineer until 2021, where I passed the torch fully to one of our team member.
Interesting. And how did you grow the platform?
Well, we grew with we tried a lot of things, right? As a company, you try everything to see what works, what sticks, what can scale, what needs more investment. The way we got our first, let's say, 100,000 users was honestly just through a sign-up. We had a sign-up form on our website. And then whenever people could sign up to this waitlist, we would say, hey, you are on a waitlist. Thank you for your interest. If you want to get, be the first to have access to the product, you can invite more people in your network. And every time someone accepts the invite and also sign up, you will go up the list. And with this kind of like gamified trick, we could actually quickly grow like our first list of sign up. Of course, this worked great for certain launch in the early days, but then we experimented with SEO, social marketing, paid ads. We did a lot of different experimentation to see, okay, what works for certain segments, certain markets, and certain persona we were trying to basically target.
I guess SEO worked pretty well, especially when the ChatGPT boom happened, right?
It was insane. So the SEO is funny, right? Because most founders don't feel compelled to invest in SEO because it's such a long-term play. You won't bear any fruits for years. But I'm so glad we did invested in content early on, because to your point, we had by the time ChatGPT came out in 2023, we had content trying to educate the market about AI first design, AI first prototyping. And so when people started to be like, oh, there's a thing called ChatGPT, maybe there's some similar tools for design or product development and prototyping, we could just capture all the demand because we already had all the SEO, all the long tail keywords, all our content was ready to just go ahead and and rank on some of these requests. So to your point, like that was a really great moment where we felt like, oh wow, I'm so glad we invested in SEO long time ago, because it really grew as a business when ChatGPT came out.
Do you think still it's something that founders should invest into? Because I would tell about my behavior. I used to use Google a lot, and even if the Google is suggesting you the best article, you gotta go through the article, right? And then there's some ads being shown to you.
Yeah.
And a lot of times also the article is not the best article. It's just the best SEO optimized article, right? But now I ask ChatGPT and it gives me the answer in like 2 seconds. So,
well, it's a chicken and egg. It is a chicken and egg problem, because at the end of the day, LLMs will be trained on content that is ranking high on the internet, right? So the higher your content rank, the higher the likelihood that content will make it through the training data of LLMs, right? This being said, of course, like what I mean by investing in SEO is not trying to just make some clickbait pages. Is really what we wrote was really like, okay, we want to teach people how to use our platform, what they can do with the platform, and how the platform fits within the greater, domain of prototyping, UX design, UI design. So it was more like creating high quality content to just frame the product and the product value in that context. And so again, this high quality content is still ranking, it's still creating, some traffic, and eventually enable us to just grow rapidly. But to your point, I don't believe that unless you are doing some consumer business that have a really good reason to just go doing those clickbaiting-ish SEO article, it doesn't make sense for all businesses and all type of companies. I completely agree with you, even more in the LLM age.
That's interesting. Going back to some of your competitors, we can see the rise of AI design tools and the fall of InVision Sketch. I want to ask you, do you think is Figma next?
That's a spicy question right there. Well, things are moving rapidly. Like Figma has been, again, growing extremely rapidly. They took Sketch and InVision out of market. Adobe XD could never really pick up and go after Figma. But now it's insane. Like over the past year, I've seen an increasing amount of customers telling us that they are either ditching Figma for product like ours, at least for 90% of the design work, which is like early stage prototyping, early stage like value product discovery with customers. But now we also have customers saying us that they bypass Figma entirely because they can do so much with those like Gen AI code generator, like Vercel, V0, Lovable. And so it is pretty wild. Like, I don't know whether Figma is at risk, but there's definitely some crazy change happening within the behavior of people that are designing and building products. So yeah, the next 2 years are going to be pretty crazy for Figma, I think.
What you just said in my mind is open to multiple threads of questions. I'm going to try to navigate them one by one. First of all, my background is Android developer. I was coding for like 4 or 5 years. And that being said, I think you can understand that I liked native apps.
Yeah.
Right? Then I used Adobe XD myself, loved it, and then it died. I was sad. And I was not really fan of Figma because it was a web app. So it kind of was being processed on web. But now we see a lot of tools are web apps. So I'm curious, what do you think about it? Because Uizard is also a web app. Do you see it as strong as it should be, or native apps are gonna win at the end?
That's an interesting question. I have a hard time saying like desktop application to come back unless there is really good reason to do so. If you need very specialized hardware acceleration, sure, you can do a lot on the web now, but there's also moments where not embedded, sorry, but like native software makes a lot more sense, like video processing, audio engineering, all that stuff. Still, there is web alternative, but the professionals still use like those native desktop application. But at the same time, the web is just amazing because you have this unified platform that just create this, you don't need to just adapt to different like OS versions. Like the web browser platform, even though there's a new release, is pretty stable, pretty much the same. You don't need to do a lot of tweaking. You can directly distribute your platform to the entire world. It also gives some interesting benefits in terms of like revenue generation. People they need to go online and you can sell them a subscription. It's a little bit trickier to do this on desktop software. We've seen, back in the days, people have like sharing hacked version of Adobe, and you could do this because it was, at the moment you download an app, a binary on your computer, there's so many different ways to circumvent the subscription, right? If it's something online, I mean, there's some locking mechanism here that's also beneficial for the businesses. But if you forget about the business side of things, even as an engineer, whenever you release a new version of your product, everybody will get that new version. You need to have to figure out, okay, how many of our users are still using version 1.0 versus 1.5? It's a nightmare to manage, right? So,
definitely.
Web-based apps are here to stay, honestly. And I personally I'm looking forward to the moment where we actually have those professional hardcore software on the web as well. Video processing, audio engineering, 3D software. There will be a time very soon where those are also on the web.
We are using Rezaei right now, and Rezaei is doing some crazy processing for us. Sometimes when I don't know if you have exported a video, but it makes your laptop burn. So, but when we like export in 4K or something like that, it just takes like 1 minute, and then the file is ready. You just download it. So, I was also amazed, like the tool like Rezaei, it was web based. But I love your point, and I've been also a mobile product manager for quite a long time, and I can tell you which users on which version is a nightmare. You need to always find some gamified way to push the users to try out no features, and you need to segment them and things like that. It's a nightmare.
But actually, there's one thing I want to highlight is that, maybe AI is gonna make a comeback to the edge, because of the privacy and data concern. What I mean by this is that we all know that people, government agencies are starting to have concern over like, okay, what does AI learn about users, and are they concerned about users actually sharing the data? At the same time, there's also like with AI performance challenges. So I think maybe AI is going to be the element of software where we might actually start getting this back to the edge, that as in like maybe when you interface with a product using AI, maybe the model actually run on your device, on your mobile, on your desktop machine. And then, of course, the rest of the software is probably web-based, but like maybe the AI model run locally to ensure, data privacy, control over what's being shared, whatever. I think it could be a moment where this comes back to the edge. But of course, there will be a lot of challenges coming with this as well. So yeah, let's see. It's going to be wild.
It's interesting because we have the Apple Intelligence, and I believe they said that it's running on your device, most of it.
Yeah.
But it's still banned in EU. So I need to really look into what's going on there, because I think one of the main concerns of EU is you cannot train the model based on the data which user has not given the consent. So
it's a much more complex kind of like regulation text. I think this will be like a really long podcast if we want to go down that route. But yeah,
definitely. Going back to web apps, what was the front-end frameworks that you guys used for Uizard?
It was like on the front end it was React components, and then back end was at least for the app side it was Node.js, and then of course everything AI model wise was written in Python and running on AWS with NVIDIA GPUs.
I know that there's a saying, killing your darlings mindset.
Yeah.
So I want to ask, did you had some badass features that you worked for 6 months or 1 year and then you had to kill it in Wizard?
Yes. And that's some of the most painful but important part of a startup journey, right? If the features that you build and love are not used by customer and customers don't even want to even hear about them, then maybe you should kill them, right? Because it just brings a lot of technical debt, technical dependencies. And one of the example was our code generator. So when we built Wizard, one of the key assumptions was that when people prototype a UI, a web app, a mobile app on our platform, they might also want to generate the actual code, the front end code, so they can actually also speed track the engineering implementation of that prototype, of that app. And it took a while to build this. Obviously, like code generator now are a lot cheaper and faster to build, but back then, it was quite a big engineering undertaking. Turns out our customer didn't care. They didn't want to use it. They didn't feel that there was a value because they were using a platform for the early stage prototyping and product discovery. And they didn't feel the need to just use our code generator for anything really, apart from maybe exploration sometime. So when we realized that only 5% of our users were actually using that, we decided to kill it. And it was painful because we had invested so much into it. A lot of our engineers loved that feature. It felt like, it was their brain baby. But yeah, we had to eventually kill the feature. And ultimately, it was a great decision because we can then focus all our time into things that customers like most and matter most in their use of the platform.
Are you going to bring it back?
So I don't know. Let's see. Now we're part of Miro. Let's see what Miro customers want and whether we should resurrect that piece of code or build it from scratch, most likely.
Because you said that a lot of our customers from Figma are transitioning to Wizard, and I know Figma has this feature that turns that part of like the UI into code.
So what I was saying that a lot of our customers at Wizard were also Figma users, and they were not fully moving to Wizard, but they were using Wizard more and more for the early stage of product design, prototyping, wireframing. But they were still using Figma for certain tasks, of course. And because of Figma's amazing plugin ecosystem, there's a few like code generator out there to just speed run the engineering process. So there's tons of options out there to pick from.
Tony, when I check your background on LinkedIn, you were never a product person. But when I speak with you, I can see you have a very strong product mindset. What I noticed speaking with a lot of founders and also product people, the best product people are the founders who have put their hands in different things. I don't know, what do you think about that?
Well, first, thanks for the compliment. I don't know. Actually, this is a good question. Again, I've never been a product manager. So as a founder, you got to be thinking product. But at the same time, what is product? In my mind, product is being able to just merge customer needs and business impact with engineering and design. That's the way I look at it. And if you look at it from this perspective, that's what a founder needs to do. And so I assume that this mindset can transfer quite easily towards like being a product leader. But again, that's just my assumption. I've never been a product manager per se. So this is just my high level assumption of why founders tend to be leading product roles when they are, moving on from their entrepreneurial journey.
No, I think you're great. I don't want to label you as a product manager because I think you're a product leader, but you're a good product leader because when I also was using like Wizard, and going through the website and everything, I just sensed that, holy shit, like these guys are really product led and product first. And that's something that is even sometimes rare among product people. Like they're more project managers rather than a product manager. So they'd rather move tasks and write some tasks for an engineer, but not really think, what can I build which is not out there, which the users really need? So the name of this podcast is Product Founder. Yeah. So I really believe the founders are the OGs of the product.
That's great. I like the term, being the OGs of product.
Because the raw product was actually not really there. Like if we go back 10 years ago.
Right.
Because not even a little bit more, 2000, this is very new rule. We never had a product manager because softwares used to be a one-time thing. We build the software, we push it out there. It was on a CD disk, and people would start using it. But now we're releasing an update every week, and then there's like a lot of ownership that you need to have, and people's expectation has changed when they're using different products. Systems are more seamlessly working together. We have also a lot of CPO role within the Fortune 500 companies, which is something, but it's not there. I had Carlos, the CEO of Product School, on the podcast. He started Product School 2014. And he was saying, like, when I went to people and said product manager, they were like, what the hell is this role? So we definitely came a long way. And I want to transition to your role today. So you're founder and CEO, and I can imagine how hard it must have been. And now you're working at Miro as the head of product and AI. How's your life? How do you feel about it?
Well, it didn't change much, because at the end of the day, we're still trying to just build some very new product to create, deeper value for customers. So I don't feel like my role has changed much, apart from not having to think about fundraising anymore.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's still very much the same. Like trying to tie customer needs, business expectations towards like product solutions, and tying in design engineering, and of course like the AI as well. So it almost feels like same apart that we are part of a much larger organization with millions of customers that are loving the product all over the world. So it's pretty wild and really exciting. I can't wait to see where we're gonna take our technology on top of the Miro platform in the next few years.
Is there any other secret project you want to start? Another company, another startup? No plan to start anything else, anytime soon. No, I really want to. I really want to just take Miro to the next level and contribute to that scale. And that's going to be keeping us busy for some time. That's amazing. And lastly, do you have any advice for the founders listening?
Oh man, how much time do we have?
Or multiple advice?
No,
we have to have.
Well, I'm just saying this as a joke, because there's just so much thing you learn by just being a founder. And I am so grateful about the startup ecosystem we're part of, where I've received so much like advice and mentoring from, companies and startup ahead of us, right? As a pre-seed startup founder, I was trying to get advice from seed stage founder. As a seed stage founder, I was trying to get advice from Series A founder, and so on and so forth. And I just really love this. Again, some people describe this as the magic of Silicon Valley, like people helping each other succeed. But so I don't know, like one thing actually I'll say, which maybe is the advice, the mother advice of all advice, is to be careful who to take advice from, actually, as a founder. Because everybody has a point of view, everybody has a bias towards certain things. But one thing I realize is that the founders are the only one that truly know their business deeply enough to be able to take the shot and make the last decision. The intuition of a founder is really hard to replicate. And so sometimes I find it difficult and to just, you hear great things, great advice, but you need to also tie this into your own intuition as the one that live this night and day, and to see, okay, which advice are worth listening to and should be implemented, and which one should be ignored, and just like, great food for thoughts, but I can't use this right now, it just doesn't make sense. And I think this is a pretty hard exercise. It's just so easy to just take advice from your board and investor and always apply it 100% of the time. But like, trust your founder intuition, because ultimately you're the one that just, again, you live this night and day. It's your project, your baby, and you probably know better to some extent. Listen openly, but trust your intuition.
I love it, Tony. Mother of all advices. I will not forget this. I love it. So for the listeners that want to connect with you, where can they find you?
They can find me on X, Twitter, and on LinkedIn. if you type my name, hopefully you can find me. And happy to chat. Always happy to help fellow founders.
Awesome. We will put the links definitely in the description. Tony, it's been a pleasure talking with you. You're a smart man. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Amir. That was fun.
Wow, you made it till the end. I'm very proud of you. Comment down below which part of the podcast did you like the most and who should I interview next. Also, on the screen, you will see a lot of our other great episodes that you should definitely check out.